What's up, everybody? This is Tech Panda. We're going to be going over how to put octagonal gates on your Switch Pro controller. Now, this is essentially making it like a Gamecube controller, where it has the 8 points around the joysticks. This is helpful for fighting games and things like that, where you want to make sure you have a specific direction when you're inputting your buttons, and so you don't die or whatever, like in Smash Brothers. I'm not going to go over every possible reason why you would want to do this over have a game controller, but obviously it was the best scenario for me, so I decided I'd do a guide on it to help some other people out if they wanted to modify their Pro controller as well. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into what we'll need for the project. I'm going to run through these pretty quickly because we'll talk more about them later. So obviously you need a Pro controller right there. You also need a replacement faceplate so that you don't screw up your original. Some diamond files, got those on Amazon. This diagram that you can get in the description, a magic eraser, and a screwdriver, and a fine tip marker for marking the 8 points. That's basically everything. You also could use some tweezers and other tools that you usually use to take apart small electronics, but they're not all necessary. If you have them lying around, why not use them? Alright, so first print out the diagram that I gave you. Basically, this is just a circle with an octagon around it that's the same size. So you're going to take the diagram that you printed out and you're going to try to line up the faceplate face down on a flat surface. Now, the point here is to line it up straight with the bottom of the controller. Now, I like to use these two crosses here to help me eyeball how straight it is. And once you've marked all 8 points with your fine tip marker, it's going to look something like this. You want to make sure the marks are long enough so that as you begin to file that you can still see where they're at. Next, you're going to actually start filing all 8 points all around the circle. Now, the key here is you don't want to go too far in, but you want to go far enough to where you'll definitely feel a little divot when you're rolling the joystick around. So just go one by one. Use this. What I did is I used the side of one of the flatter, pointier files, and whichever one you have that you would think work best there. Once you're done with that, it should look something like this. So this is just to map out each of the 8 points before you do anything crazy. Like I said before, you can choose which one to use. I like to use either this real thin one or this edge of the flatter, more like rounded one. Next up, you're going to be looking up assembly and disassembly instructions on another video because I'm not going to go into exactly how to pull apart a Pro controller because that's a whole thing, but it's actually not that hard compared to some other controllers, so pause and go ahead and do that now. Once you got that done, you're going to want to put the faceplate back on, connect it back to your Switch, and calibrate it. This is an optional step, but I think it's helpful for especially if this is your first time doing it, to help you feel real confident that you've set them out in the proper 8 points. This is screenshots of how to do it on the Switch, and it's basically just to help you feel very confident before you move forward that you've properly set out all 8 points. Okay, the next step is going to be actually to file the octagon in the flat side. So what I want to do is go back to the diagram that I created to kind of give you a conceptual understanding of what you're going to be doing, because I think this is the most confusing part. So here we have the diagram. It's a circle inside of an octagon. So the question is, what are you actually filing? What material are you actually getting rid of? And I'm showing you right here. So basically all it is this small point on the edge of each one of these pizza pieces, if you will. So what you're essentially going to do is put your file with one end of the flat part right up against the push with that type of pressure into the point so that you basically file down that small piece and flatten out to where the curve of the circle actually starts to become part of the flat part of the octagon. And eventually it's supposed to look like this. Now, what I've actually decided to do is also make each point a indentation. And this helps smooth out the point so that you don't have to worry about getting an edge on each point that's perfectly like comes to a tip. If you put a circular divot on each one, you'll see at the end, then that really gives you some flexibility and a little bit of a leeway not to be perfect. When you're done with filing, and it will take a little while, what you'll end up with is something that looks like this. And basically this is the unpolished version of what's going to be there at the end. So go ahead and do it for both of them, both sticks, or if you only want to do one, that's up to you. And when you're done with that, then it should look like this from the top side. The part that I was speaking about earlier is these divots. I went ahead at the end and basically took a rounded file and kind of made these even more prominent. I think this helps smooth out any edges that were a little bit uneven, and it really helped the overall quality and look of it at the end. And it actually is very functional because it's where the joystick rests when you're using it. So in the end, the last thing you need to do before you finish up is to actually polish off the rough edges. Now, I just used the magic eraser. It's just essentially just a foam pad that you can buy anywhere, and I get it wet, and you just essentially rub it around the inside. It probably will break a little, but just hang in there. It's essentially like a really fine sandpaper. Now, I might recommend, if you want it to look super nice, to use sandpaper first and then use this. But I used only this, and it turned out pretty well for me. This is me checking just to make sure everything was good, which you can do as well. But essentially, after you've polished it, you are done, and you have a finished Pro Controller modded with octagonal gates. Now, mine turned out pretty well, even without that much effort. It took me a couple hours. It's my first time. I probably could have done a better job cleaning up those joysticks, but I think it worked out really well. As you can see, those divots are in there, but I think it looks really nice. So I hope this video really helped you guys out. If you do this mod and you like it, leave a comment, like, and subscribe if you want more content like this. Thanks. And I'll see you in the next one.